Hey guys, tonight we drift back to a time so alien, so unrecognizable, that even your wildest science fiction movie set designers would throw in the towel. Imagine oceans without fish, no whales, not even a shrimp to snack on. Just endless stretches of microbial haze floating in waters that look more like a cosmic soup than a vacation beach. And honestly, if you somehow time traveled here without a hazmat suit, you wouldn't last a single minute. Yep, you'd keel over instantly. Sorry, but that's the truth. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from, and what time is it in your corner of the world? Drop it in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take your first cautious step into this primordial night, though night hardly fits. There are no stars reflected here, only a dim haze of atmosphere and a sea that seems to breathe. The water smells metallic, as if the whole ocean had been steeped in rust. Beneath the surface, life is simple, maddeningly simple. Single cells float alone, drifting like lost balloons after a forgotten party. For billions of years, that was enough. But lately, the cells have been getting ideas. You notice them clustering, sticky little rebels gluing themselves to one another. They don't have hands, of course, but they ooze out proteins and sugars like awkward teenagers spilling soda. And somehow this muck makes them stick. Imagine amoebas exchanging phone numbers, except their version is way slimmer. There's safety in numbers. A lone cell is like a kid on the playground with no friends. Easy target. But in a group, they can huddle against danger, share a little protection, maybe even divide up the chores. Some focus on gobbling nutrients, others on shielding the group's edges. This isn't democracy. It's more like an accidental commune. Still, it works. As you watch, the ocean floor shifts under your feet. The world is restless. Volcanoes belch, currents swirl, and oxygen, a rare, intoxicating gift, is slowly seeping into the atmosphere. You taste it faintly on your tongue, metallic and sharp. For these cells, oxygen is like caffeine, dangerous in high doses, but irresistible in small ones. With it, they can fuel complexity, power tiny engines inside themselves, and maybe, just maybe, dream bigger than solitude. And of course, there's drama. Not every cell is on board with the team player lifestyle. Some drift off, preferring their quiet independence. Others try freeloading, hanging on to the group without really contributing. You can almost hear the squabbles and chemical whispers. I'm doing all the work here, versus chill, I'm just vibing. Yet, against the odds, clusters hold. Some grow larger, stretching into odd shapes, forming fragile sheets or hollow balls. When the tides shift and currents sweep, many scatter back into loneliness, but a few cling stubbornly. These are the pioneers, carving the first hesitant path towards something greater. And standing here, watching these cellular soap bubbles, you realize you're witnessing the dawn of multicellular life. Historians still argue whether it was driven by survival pressure, environmental shifts, or pure accident. Maybe all of the above. What's certain is that this tiny rebellion, the act of sticking together, will rewrite the story of Earth forever. So you lean closer, hearing the soft pop and fizz of microscopic conversations. They don't know it yet, but these little blobs are sketching the first blueprints for complexity, for creatures with organs, eyes, skeletons, even for you. You're still crouched at the shoreline of that strange, breathing sea, and the clusters of cells in front of you wobble like little balloons glued together at random angles. They don't look impressive, more like soap suds after a sloppy dishwashing session. But they carry a secret. Their stickiness isn't just chance, it's chemistry, a quiet trick written into their very walls. You watch as one cluster bumps into another. Instead of drifting apart, they cling, strands of sugary polymers stretching like bubble gum. It's messy, It's inefficient, and yet it works. Suddenly, instead of lonely wanderers, you see gangs of cells, blobs upon blobs. Some slide together so tightly they look like they're whispering secrets. If you had a microscope from your kitchen drawer, yes, the one next to the blunt scissors, you'd notice the proteins anchoring them, like microscopic Velcro. That stickiness brings perks. A solo cell floating in the dark is like a lone commuter in rush hour traffic, vulnerable, stressed, constantly honked at. But in a cluster, they gain strength. Waves don't scatter them so easily. Nutrients passing by can be trapped and shared, and predators, tiny, vicious grazers, find it harder to pick off individuals when the group is a solid, jiggly wall. Still, you smirk, because every community has its freeloaders. A few cells cling without pulling their weight. They don't absorb much, don't protect the group's edge. They just ride along. If this feels suspiciously like your group project back in school, you're not wrong. Some things never change, even at the dawn of time. But something deeper is happening. Cells start secreting signals, chemical murmurs that say, "Hey, stick here. Don't drift away." They can't talk, but these whispers keep the blobs from dissolving at the first push of a current. Historians, well, biologists in lab coats really, still argue about whether this was intentional cooperation or just sticky accidents. Either way, the ocean is now sprinkled with these tiny alliances. The seas themselves aren't exactly helping. Storms roar across this planet, lightning forking through thick clouds, rain pounding salt water with the ferocity of a billion timpani drums. Imagine trying to hold hands with your friends on a roller coaster while being dunked into soda. That's what these clusters endure daily. And yet, they endure. You trail along the shoreline, and the mud squishes beneath your bare feet. Beneath that mud lie fossils in waiting, though they don't know it yet. Most of these clusters will vanish without a trace, but a handful will someday leave impressions in stone, flat smudges that puzzle paleontologists for centuries. Proof that sticky alliances were more than a passing fad. And here's the twist. Some clusters figure out that sticking together isn't just safer, it's profitable. Cells near the edge of the group touch the outside world first, absorbing nutrients. Cells tucked inside are sheltered, maybe even resting. For the first time, a primitive division of labor begins to emerge. That's right, someone's washing the dishes while someone else does the cooking. They're not great at it yet, but hey, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither were you. As you lean closer, waves slap your ankles, and the scent of brine and minerals fills your lungs. The ocean feels alive in a way your modern beach never could. Every sticky blob before you hums with possibility. They wobble, they stretch. Some tear apart and drift like confetti, but others hold on tighter. And you realize, with a chill, that this simple glue, this sticky alliance, is the quiet revolution. A microscopic mutiny against solitude. A soft beginning to a story that will someday lead to forests, tigers, skyscrapers, and yes, you sitting here in the dark, listening. The tide shifts, and with it, your gaze drifts back to the clusters wobbling in the water. At first glance, they look the same as yesterday, slimy, gelatinous gatherings of microscopic tenants. But tonight, as you lean in, something has changed. Inside those sticky spheres, cells are beginning to take on jobs. It starts small. Some cells near the edges grow tougher, hardening their walls like the bouncers outside a crowded club. They absorb the first hit when waves crash, shielding their more delicate neighbors. Others stay nestled in the center, focused purely on dividing and producing more cells, like tireless little factories. And a few take on the role of digesters, hoarding nutrients from the environment and breaking them down to share. Suddenly, you're not looking at a chaotic crowd. You're seeing the first office building in history. Nobody has a corner office yet, but the cubicles are forming. You step closer and imagine the conversations. Okay, I'll protect the outside. Cool, I'll make more of us. Fine, I'll handle lunch duty. It's laughably simple, but it's also genius. By dividing labor, the whole group survives better. One tiny sacrifice here, one little specialization there, and suddenly survival odds skyrocket. And here's the kicker. This isn't just convenience. It's survival of the stickiest. The ocean is ruthless. Single cells drifting alone are swallowed, dissolved, erased. But the blobs with teamwork, they endure, they spread. They become the trendsetters of the Precambrian era. Think of it like the world's first startup company, messy, chaotic, but with just enough synergy to keep the lights on. As you wander along the shore, a breeze laced with volcanic ash brushes your face. You cough, taste the bitterness, and realize this world is in constant upheaval. Storms churn the surface, while the deep remains an inky abyss. In these conditions, division of labor isn't just clever, it's essential. If every cell tried to do everything alone, they'd fail. By splitting roles, they buy themselves resilience. But don't get too sentimental. Even here, politics creep in. Some cells forget their jobs, reverting to freeloaders. Others get too aggressive, hoarding nutrients like selfish roommates hiding snacks under the bed. You chuckle, because you've seen this play out in human offices too. The struggle between cooperation and selfishness is as old as life itself. Still, amid the squabbles, innovation thrives. Some blobs develop hollow centers, like primitive stomachs, where food particles swirl and get shared. Others flatten into sheets, making it easier for edge cells to soak up light and minerals. Each new tweak is an experiment, and the ocean is the laboratory. Most fail spectacularly, dissolving back into the void. But a few cling to existence, passing their quirky designs forward, and you, the quiet observer, feel the weight of history pressing in. These aren't just blobs, they are blueprints. They're sketching the outlines of muscles, skin, and organs that don't exist yet. They are the whispers of every creature that will ever crawl, swim, or walk. Historians still debate whether this was cooperation born of necessity, or sheer chemical accident dressed up as teamwork. Maybe both. But tonight, as you watch the clusters pulse and shimmer in the dim light, you sense the truth. Complexity was inevitable. Once the first job was handed out, the chain reaction could never be stopped. The ocean hums around you. The blobs wobble like lanterns in the surf. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet thought forms. This is the first hint of destiny. An invisible hand nudging cells toward the miracle of complexity. You wade a little deeper, the water cool against your calves, and the ocean whispers its restless song. All around you, the sticky clusters of cells keep experimenting with their newfound teamwork. And now, you notice the payoff. Survival here isn't just luck anymore, it's strategy. The single cells that once floated aimlessly are sitting ducks. Hungry grazers, tiny, almost invisible predators, zip past and gobble them like free samples at a supermarket. But the multicellular blobs, they're harder to swallow. Too big, too slippery, too much of a mouthful. It's like trying to eat an entire meatball in one bite while swimming laps. Good luck with that. And in groups, they can do things solo cells could only dream of. A cluster stretches like a pancake, soaking in sunlight across a wider surface. Another forms a hollow center, like a microscopic donut, catching nutrients as the tide rushes through. You can't help but grin. These are hacks, life's earliest cheat codes, and they're working. The perks go beyond feeding. Some blobs huddle tighter when danger looms, forming living shields. Others scatter into fragments that regroup later. Primitive escape tactics. You picture it as the world's first neighborhood watch, except the members don't have whistles, just slimy membranes. The environment itself seems to cheer them on. Oxygen levels are creeping upward, thanks to photosynthetic microbes pumping the atmosphere full of fresh air. You inhale, catching the faint metallic tang. For single cells, too much oxygen can be toxic. But for clusters, it's rocket fuel. With it, they power internal engines, mitochondria, tiny factories that let them do more, grow bigger, and maybe last longer than a fleeting tide. Of course, nothing comes free. Bigger bodies need more food. Sharing means arguments. And freeloaders, always freeloaders, still hitch rides without contributing. You can almost hear them sigh, "I'm conserving energy," while the others roll their metaphorical eyes. If cells could file HR complaints, these oceans would be clogged with paperwork. Yet somehow, the benefits outweigh the costs. Cooperation buys time, resilience, and most importantly, opportunity. For the first time in Earth's story, survival isn't just about dodging death. It's about thriving, adapting, testing boundaries. You crouch lower, the salt spray tickling your skin. In the bubbling shallows, you see clusters glowing faintly under moonlight, shimmering like living pearls. They pulse in rhythm, each beat a promise that complexity is here to stay. Historians still argue whether this collective leap was sparked by environmental chaos, genetic accidents, or pure necessity. The truth is probably tangled in all three. But as you stand in the primordial surf, you sense something undeniable. Once life discovered the perks of community, it would never go back. And you can't resist a smirk. Billions of years later, humans would still be trying to figure out the same thing. How to live together without driving each other insane. Seems like some lessons just take a while to stick. The ocean air tonight feels sharper, as though something invisible has shifted. You taste it in the back of your throat, crisp, metallic, and oddly invigorating. That's oxygen, seeping into the world more than ever before. To you, it's just fresh air. To these early blobs of cells, it's nothing short of revolutionary. For billions of years, life got by without it. Single cells survived on chemical scraps, eking out energy the slow, inefficient way, like trying to power a city with AA batteries. But now, thanks to the tireless work of photosynthetic microbes pumping oxygen into the atmosphere, the game has changed. Suddenly, organisms can tap into a new kind of power source. It's as if the universe just handed out free espresso shots. You see it in the clusters around you. Some cells are jittery, almost glowing with new energy. They're running tiny internal engines, mitochondria, that thrive on oxygen. With every breath of this new atmosphere, their world expands. They can grow larger, move faster, divide roles more efficiently. The ocean has become a training ground for complexity, and oxygen is the fuel. Of course, not everyone is thrilled. To many older forms of life, oxygen is poison. You watch some lone cells shrivel at its touch, retreating to oxygen-free pockets of mud. They hiss in protest. Well, not really, but you imagine it anyway. As if muttering, "Back in my day, we didn't need this fancy gas." Evolution is harsh. It rewards adaptability and punishes nostalgia. But for the pioneers willing to embrace oxygen, possibilities bloom. They can build stronger bonds, create sturdier bodies, and explore new ways of life. Some even begin flirting with movement, twitching just enough to drift toward richer patches of food. Imagine the ocean floor like a slow-motion dance floor, cells swaying awkwardly to a beat only chemistry can hear. The atmosphere above is also transforming. Skies that were once heavy with haze are clearing, letting more sunlight pour down. The seas glitter, and those clusters you've been following seem to bask in the glow. They stretch wider, layer thicker, as though practicing for something grander. Historians and scientists still debate whether the rise of oxygen was the push that multicellular life needed, or just a happy coincidence. Some argue it was inevitable. Others say without oxygen, complexity would have stalled forever. The truth, like the air itself, is probably a mixture of both. You lean back, gazing across the shimmering water, and chuckle softly. Oxygen is giving these blobs their first taste of ambition. It's the same restless energy that will someday drive birds into the skies, whales through the oceans, and you, yes, you, through sleepless nights with too much caffeine. And standing here, ankle deep in a world just learning how to breathe, you feel it. This is the moment the spark of complexity truly catches fire. The world around you groans, and suddenly, the warmth you've been feeling fades. The seas stiffen under a shroud of ice, and the air bites colder than you thought possible. Welcome to Snowball Earth, a time when glaciers creep down toward the equator, and the oceans freeze over like a cosmic popsicle. Not exactly beach weather. You shuffle along the icy shoreline, your breath clouding, though it's not really your breath. It's imagination painting frost into the air. Beneath the frozen lid, the clusters of cells you've been following face their greatest trial yet. Light is scarce. Nutrients are harder to come by. Imagine running a startup in the middle of a blackout. It's that kind of stress. Yet, somehow, they hang on. Cracks in the ice let in just enough sunlight for photosynthesis. Volcanic vents pump heat and minerals into the water, offering hidden refuges. In these tiny oases, blobs of cells huddle together, surviving like campers gathered around a sputtering fire. Some groups go dormant, slowing their internal processes to a crawl, as if hibernating through the frozen centuries. And centuries they are. Snowball Earth doesn't pass in weeks or even millennia. It lasts millions of years. The oceans turn into enormous endurance tests. Single cells perish in droves, unable to adapt. But the multicellular pioneers, they use cooperation as armor. Edge cells shield the center from the cold. Others trade nutrients with precision, keeping the whole organism from starving. You lean down, your fingers brushing frost off a stone, and you picture the resilience etched in these tiny survivors. They are stubborn, clinging to life in conditions that seem designed to snuff them out. Historians still debate how widespread the freeze was. Some argue the Earth was one big snowball, others a slush ball with patches of open water. Either way, the message is clear. Survival demanded innovation. And there are whispers of something new. In the darkness, some clusters start using chemical signals more deliberately. They talk through molecular pulses, ensuring that resources reach the right places at the right time. It's primitive logistics, but effective. Think of it as the earliest version of text messaging. Short, simple, but life-saving. You can't help but smile at the irony. Out of all the worlds where life might exist, Earth decides to freeze itself into an ice cube and still, life finds a way to adapt. These cells don't just endure. They emerge tougher, more efficient, better prepared for whatever comes next. The ice, for all its cruelty, becomes a crucible. By bottling life into tight, stressful corners, it forces cooperation to sharpen, signaling to grow clearer, survival strategies to evolve faster. When the glaciers finally retreat, the survivors won't just step back into the sunlight. They'll burst out, ready to reshape the oceans with newfound strength. So, you wrap your arms tighter, shivering, even though you know it's only a story. And in that cold hush, you hear it. The faint crackle of possibility beneath the ice, waiting to break free. The ice is thinned now, retreating in groans and cracks, and the oceans once again breathe free. You wade back into the water, its chill softened by the returning sun, and notice something new rippling through the blobs of cells. They aren't just sticking together anymore, they're chatting. Not in words, of course. You won't catch a cell saying, "Hey buddy, pass the salt." Their language is chemical. Tiny bursts of molecules drift through the water. Coded messages exchanged in whispers you can almost imagine. One cluster releases a puff of proteins, and another nearby responds, swelling or shifting, as if nodding back. It's biology's first group chat, minus the memes and arguments about who forgot to mute themselves. You lean closer. These whispers coordinate everything. When to divide, when to stop, when to share nutrients. Without them, the group would collapse into chaos. With them, it becomes something more. An organism that behaves like a whole rather than just a pile of parts. You can almost hear the rhythm: signal, response, survival. Some clusters refine the system further. Certain cells become dedicated messengers, pumping out chemical signals while others do the listening. It's the earliest hint of nervous systems, a prelude to the chatter that will one day power brains, poems, and your late-night craving for snacks. You smile, realizing your neurons firing now are just a fancier version of this ancient gossip. But, as always, not every signal is reliable. Some freeloaders twist the chemical code, pretending to contribute while secretly hoarding resources. Others misfire, sending scramble messages that confuse the group. Imagine a prankster spamming emojis in your work chat until no one knows what's going on. That's evolution's version of a glitch. And yet, despite the noise, the system holds. Communication gives these clusters an edge. They coordinate their movements, drift toward richer food patches, or brace together when the currents surge. Suddenly, survival feels less like chance and more like strategy. The ocean itself hums with this new conversation. Every patch of water is alive with molecules drifting like unseen notes, overlapping into a symphony of signals. You breathe it in, a faint tang like burnt sugar and salt, and realize you're standing in the middle of the planet's first information network. Historians still debate, did communication evolve first for cooperation or for competition? Were these whispers meant to share or to cheat? No one agrees, but here, watching the blobs pulse and shimmer, you sense the truth. Language, no matter how primitive, always reshapes the world. And tonight, as the surf laps at your knees, you can't help but chuckle. Billions of years later, you'd be using messages, texts, emails, comments to do the same thing. To gather, to share, to survive. The tools are newer, but the impulse, that's been here since the very first chemical sigh. Step with me now, deeper into time, 600 million years ago. The ocean floor has changed again. Gone is the barren mud and lonely blobs. Instead, the seafloor stretches like a strange alien meadow, rolling out beneath the dim glow of an ancient sun. But don't expect grass or daisies. The Ediacaran fields are filled with creatures so peculiar that even today's biologists scratch their heads and argue late into the night over coffee. Picture quilts stitched from jelly, lying flat upon the sand. Picture soft fronds, leaf-like bodies swaying without stems, rooted in nothing, yet standing still. Picture rippling ovals that look uncannily like couch cushions, someone misplaced on the seafloor. You kneel beside one. Dickinsonia, they call it now. Its body is ribbed like the grooves of a vinyl record, radiating outward in perfect symmetry. Was it an animal, a fungus, something else entirely? Even the experts don't agree. It doesn't eat in any way you'd recognize. Instead, it may have absorbed nutrients directly from the microbial mats carpeting the seabed, the way a sponge drinks up spilled wine. Nearby stands Charniodiscus, tall and fern-like, rooted in the mud. Its frond sways with the currents as if trying to photosynthesize like a plant, though it is not a plant at all. And then there's Sprigina, worm-like with a faint head, perhaps an ancestor of creatures yet to come, perhaps only a dead end. Each one is an evolutionary experiment, a strange draft in nature's long manuscript. You wander through this alien garden in awe. Nothing here has bones or shells or teeth. They are soft, ephemeral, more like dreams than animals. And perhaps that is why they rarely fossilized, leaving behind only faint impressions pressed into stone, like shadows of ghosts. The strangest part? This meadow is quiet. No snapping jaws, no frantic chases, no sudden ambushes. Predation, the ruthless dance of hunter and prey, has not yet arrived. For now, life sprawls peacefully across the seabed, basking in nutrients drifting on currents, spreading slowly, silently. It feels almost like walking through a cathedral, vast and solemn, with creatures frozen in contemplative stillness. And yet, you sense the stillness will not last. Already whispers of change ripple through the water. Some bodies grow more complex, edges sharper, movements quicker. Something is stirring beneath the quilts and fronds, something restless. The age of soft quilts will someday give way to teeth, shells, eyes, warriors of evolution. But for this moment, here in the Ediacaran fields, the earth holds its breath. You stand surrounded by forms so alien that even your imagination strains to name them, and you realize this was the planet's first great garden of animals, fragile, mysterious, beautiful. The silence doesn't last. One morning, though morning is a laughable word when the sun and atmosphere are nothing like the ones you know, you sense it. The ocean has shifted. The quilted fields of the Ediacaran fade, and in their place, the world erupts into motion. The Cambrian explosion is not an explosion of fire, but of form. It's as if nature threw open her sketchbook and decided, you know what? Let's try everything at once. Suddenly bodies sprout shells, eyes gleam for the first time, and limbs slice through the water like sharpened scissors. Complexity surges forward in a geological blink. 10, maybe 20 million years. A mere instant compared to the billions that came before. You swim through this fevered dreamscape, and it's overwhelming. Creatures dart in every direction, like rush hour traffic without a single red light. Over there, Anomalocaris, the terror of its age, slicing the water with swimming lobes, its circular mouth bristling with plates like a nightmare pineapple slicer. It lunges at trilobites, the tiny armored scuttlers who've just invented the art of rolling into a ball when danger strikes. Eyes are everywhere. Compound eyes, simple eyes, stalked eyes. Evolution suddenly becomes obsessed with vision, as if the ocean itself turned on the lights. With sight comes hunting, with hunting comes fear, and with fear, speed, armor, clever tricks. You can almost hear the evolutionary arms race clanging like blacksmiths forging new weapons day after day. What's strangest is not just the ferocity, but the diversity. Worms bristle with spines, shrimp-like bodies wear armor, and some organisms seem like doodles drawn in the margins of biology. Five-eyed Opabinia waves its flexible trunk like a vacuum hose. Hallucigenia crawls on absurd spindly legs, spines sticking from its back as if someone glued a porcupine to a pipe cleaner. Paleontologists once mounted it upside down and backwards, which, frankly, seems like the correct way to honor its chaos. And through it all, the trilobites thrive. Their hard shells clink and scrape, a soundless percussion against the seafloor. They are the ultimate survivors, mass-producing themselves into the millions. Imagine cockroaches in armor, but somehow cuter. They march, burrow, swim, and spread across the globe as if they own the place. You drift among this surge of life and feel dizzy. For billions of years, life clung to simplicity, patient, unhurried. Then, boom, it accelerates like a gamer hitting the fast-forward button. Scientists still argue, was it oxygen levels finally high enough to support bigger bodies? Was it the invention of predation, forcing everything to get faster and tougher? Or maybe life just got bored and decided to go wild. Whatever the reason, here it is. The Cambrian, nature's grand unveiling, and the ocean hums with vitality. Everywhere you look, something new wiggles, swims, bites, or hides. It is chaos, it is beauty, and it is the beginning of the complex tree of life that, millions of years later, you will inherit. You've barely caught your breath from the Cambrian carnival when the stakes rise again. The ocean is no longer just crowded, it's dangerous. For the first time in Earth's history, life has a brand new invention, the predator. Predation sounds obvious to you now. Something hunts, something runs. But before this, nothing really chased. Creatures sat, absorbed, filtered, or grazed like eternal buffet-goers. Then along came eyes, muscles, armor, and suddenly, dinner started running away. You float above the seabed, watching trilobites scatter like coins spilled on the floor. From the shadows glides Anomalocaris again, that infamous monster of the Cambrian. Its eyes bulge with thousands of lenses. Its arms curl forward like serrated chopsticks, snatching prey with alarming precision. If you were a trilobite, you'd be toast, unless you perfected the art of curling into a defensive ball. Evolution, in its strange generosity, offers you two options: armor up or get fast. Nearby, a smaller but no less vicious hunter makes its move. Primitive worms with sharp jaws burrow and lunge, ambushing unsuspecting grazers. Their teeth are simple cones, but compared to the soft, squishy world that came before, they're weapons of mass disruption. Imagine going from a pillow fight to a knife fight overnight. That's the Cambrian for you. With predators rising, the entire ecosystem reshapes. Grazers dig deeper, swimmers grow quicker, bodies harden into shells tougher than bone china. Even spines appear, protruding from backs like desperate hedgehog defenses. And suddenly, the once gentle ocean floor resembles a battlefield frozen in slow motion. One curious truth: these early predators weren't invincible. Fossil evidence shows bite marks on Anomalocaris carapaces, hinting that even the mighty hunters sometimes ended up on someone else's menu. The ocean had no kings, only contenders in a never-ending arms race. And here's the funny part. You think your modern world is stressful, with deadlines and emails. Try being a worm in the Cambrian, constantly glancing over your non-existent shoulder for a giant pineapple slicer mouth about to snap you in half. Stress, it turns out, is as old as teeth. Scientists still debate what truly sparked this predator boom. Was it oxygen fueling larger muscles? Was it the Red Queen effect, prey and predator locked in perpetual competition? No single answer wins. But one thing's clear. Once predators entered the stage, there was no going back. The ocean had tasted the thrill of the chase, and the script of evolution forever changed. You drift higher, watching the drama unfold. Teeth and shells clash. Jaws clamp shut. Life, once a peaceful quilt, now runs on adrenaline. And in this crucible of fear and hunger, complexity thrives. You've barely caught your breath from the Cambrian carnival when the stakes rise again. The ocean is no longer just crowded, it's dangerous. For the first time in Earth's history, life has a brand new invention: the predator. Predation sounds obvious to you now. Something hunts, something runs. But before this, nothing really chased. Creatures sat, absorbed, filtered, or grazed like eternal buffet-goers. Then along came eyes, muscles, armor, and suddenly, dinner started running away. You float above the seabed, watching trilobites scatter like coins spilled on the floor. From the shadows glides Anomalocaris again, that infamous monster of the Cambrian. Its eyes bulge with thousands of lenses. Its arms curl forward like serrated chopsticks, snatching prey with alarming precision. If you were a trilobite, you'd be toast, unless you perfected the art of curling into a defensive ball. Evolution, in its strange generosity, offers you two options: armor up or get fast. Nearby, a smaller but no less vicious hunter makes its move. Primitive worms with sharp jaws burrow and lunge, ambushing unsuspecting grazers. Their teeth are simple cones, but compared to the soft, squishy world that came before, they're weapons of mass disruption. Imagine going from a pillow fight to a knife fight overnight. That's the Cambrian for you. With predators rising, the entire ecosystem reshapes. Grazers dig deeper, swimmers grow quicker, bodies harden into shells tougher than bone china. Even spines appear, protruding from backs like desperate hedgehog defenses. And suddenly, the once gentle ocean floor resembles a battlefield frozen in slow motion. One curious truth: These early predators weren't invincible. Fossil evidence shows bite marks on anomalocaris carapaces, hinting that even the mighty hunters sometimes ended up on someone else's menu. The ocean had no kings, only contenders in a never-ending arms race. And here's the funny part. You think your modern world is stressful, with deadlines and emails. Try being a worm in the Cambrian, constantly glancing over your non-existent shoulder for a giant pineapple slicer mouth about to snap you in half. Stress, it turns out, is as old as teeth. Scientists still debate what truly sparked this predator boom. Was it oxygen fueling larger muscles? Was it the Red Queen effect, prey and predator locked in perpetual competition? No single answer wins. But one thing's clear. Once predators entered the stage, there was no going back. The ocean had tasted the thrill of the chase, and the script of evolution forever changed. You drift higher, watching the drama unfold. Teeth and shells clash. Jaws clamp shut. Life, once a peaceful quilt, now runs on adrenaline. And in this crucible of fear and hunger, complexity thrives. You drift onward past the age of trilobite dominance, and the scenery shifts again. The ocean floor, once flat plains dotted with crawlers and predators, begins to sprout something new. Structures, vast and intricate, that change everything about life below the waves. Reefs. Not the vibrant rainbow reefs of your time, with clownfish mugging for Pixar and parrotfish crunching coral. These early reefs are stranger, quieter, almost eerie. They're not built by corals yet. That's still millions of years away. Instead, they rise from the labor of sponges and colonies of cyanobacteria, stacking and cementing themselves into rocky frameworks. Picture towers of stone-like sponge and layered mounds of microbial mats, knitting themselves into the skeleton of the ocean. You glide between them, weaving through jagged pillars and bulging walls. For the first time, the sea has real three-dimensional architecture. Caverns to hide in, cliffs to perch on, corridors to stalk prey through. Reefs create neighborhoods, and with neighborhoods comes an explosion of possibilities. Tiny arthropods scuttle into crevices. Worms wriggle into hidden burrows. Even trilobites crawl along ledges like climbers testing new cliffs. Here's a curious truth. Some of these reef builders use calcium carbonate to harden themselves, the same material that will one day form seashells and marble. By laying it down, they inadvertently turn the ocean into a construction site. Nature, for the first time, became an architect with permanence in mind. These reefs weren't just temporary shelters. They could last thousands, even millions of years. Of course, predators adapted quickly. You see ambushers lurking in cracks, early arthropods waiting for a meal to blunder past. Life, once spread thinly across mud plains, now clusters thickly in reef cities. And where life crowds together, drama follows. Theft, ambush, opportunity. It's all here, played out silently beneath prehistoric waves. What makes you smile is the sheer oddness of it. Imagine looking at a modern office building and realizing it was built by sponges. That's the Cambrian Ocean for you. Whole neighborhoods engineered by creatures that don't even have nervous systems, yet somehow change the course of evolution. Scientists still debate just how advanced these first reefs were. Were they fragile, toppled easily by storms? Or were they sturdy fortresses, foundations for entire ecosystems? The evidence is fragmentary, fossilized in the chunks scattered across ancient sea floors. But what no one doubts is this. Once reefs arrived, the ocean would never again be the same flat, featureless stage. And as you float through these alien cathedrals of stone and sponge, it dawns on you. Life is learning not just how to live, but how to build. The ocean is no longer a wilderness alone. It is becoming a city, alive with architecture, buzzing with opportunity. You feel it before you see it. The water around you seems fresher, lighter, almost charged. something invisible but powerful is changing the very chemistry of the ocean. Oxygen, not the trickle that sustained the Ediacaran quilts, not the modest boost of the early Cambrian, but a surge. A planetary deep breath. It happens in pulses, spread across millions of years. Volcanoes reshape continents, rivers pour minerals into the seas, and photosynthetic microbes churn sunlight into oxygen like tiny green factories. The result? Oceans richer in life's most precious fuel. For you, it's background, every breath you take for granted. For these ancient creatures, it's the equivalent of plugging evolution into a wall socket. With more oxygen comes bigger bodies, faster metabolisms, sharper reflexes. Predators grow hungrier, prey grows cleverer, and both grow tougher. What once was a game of sluggish ambush now becomes a blur of darting swimmers, armored scuttlers, and organisms with energy to spare. You watch trilobites skitter faster than before, their crystal eyes gleaming, while worm-like predators twist and lunge with new vigor. Here's the twist. Oxygen isn't evenly spread. Deeper waters often remain dark and anoxic, dead zones where only bacteria thrive. But along the coasts and shallows, where sunlight pours down and algae bloom, oxygen builds like a storm. It creates hotspots of evolution, pockets of innovation, miniature worlds where life experiments with form. If you wander too deep, you'd suffocate instantly. If you stay in the shallows, you'd feel the buzz of oxygen coursing through every gill, every primitive lung. Scientists still debate whether it was oxygen that caused the Cambrian explosion, or whether it was just one of many ingredients. But what they do agree on is that these surges tipped the balance. Without oxygen rising, complex tissues would collapse, muscles wouldn't twitch, eyes wouldn't focus. In a way, the very act of hunting, swimming, or escaping owes itself to this unseen chemical revolution. And, of course, it's not without chaos. Algal blooms spread, feeding frenzies erupt. And when those blooms die, they sometimes strip oxygen away, leaving patches of lifeless water. Imagine the ancient ocean as a patchwork quilt of feast and famine, where one reef thrives in oxygen-rich glory, while another just a mile away gasps in silence. You hover in this charged water, feeling the hum of potential. Oxygen is invisible, but you can sense its power in the speed of fins around you, the shimmer of shells, the sudden agility in bodies that once seemed sluggish. The planet has breathed deeper, and in that breath, life has found the fuel to run wild. The ocean, already bursting with trilobites, sponges, and predators, is about to welcome a new cast of characters. At first, they don't look like much. Slivers of flesh, tiny swimmers, barely noticeable among the armored crowds. But hidden within them is a secret blueprint that will one day shape you. Vertebrates. You spot one darting past, no longer than your pinky. Heikuichthys. Its body is delicate, translucent, shaped like a tiny fish with faint eyes and a tail fin that flickers like a ribbon. What sets it apart isn't what you can see, but what lies inside, something rigid, a notochord, the ancestor of your backbone. While trilobites trust armor, these fragile pioneers trust flexibility. It's like trading a brick wall for a bendy spring. Nearby glides Milocunmingia, another tiny swimmer. Its head region holds the earliest whispers of a skull. Primitive muscles ripple along its body, letting it move with surprising grace. In a sea of armored scuttlers and spiny oddities, these newcomers cut through the water like sleek prototypes, built for speed rather than defense. They don't roar, they don't bite with jaws. Those will come later. But they can move in ways their stiff-bodied neighbors cannot. Evolution seems to be experimenting with a new strategy. Agility over armor, internal support over external plating. It looks fragile now, but it's the start of a dynasty that will give rise to sharks, dinosaurs, birds, and, yes, you. The funny part? These early vertebrates are so small that most predators barely notice them. They slip between trilobite legs, vanish into cracks, dash into currents too swift for bulkier creatures. Sometimes the best survival strategy isn't strength, it's obscurity. You can almost hear them whisper, "Don't mind me, just rehearsing for world domination in a few 100 million years." Scientists still argue about their exact features. Did they have gill pouches like fish? Did they already carry the genetic seeds of jaws? The fossils are smudges in stone, like sketches left in the margins of evolution's notebook. But even in their blur, they reveal enough. The vertebrate line has begun. As you drift among them, you realize something profound. The trilobites may rule now, the predators may terrify. But it is these tiny, almost invisible pioneers that hold the future. They don't know it yet, of course. For now, they're just trying not to get eaten. But the quiet flick of their tails sends ripples that will eventually shape the course of every mammal, bird, and fish to come, including you. You drift through the waters, watching those tiny, delicate vertebrates flicker around you like silver threads. They've already made the bold leap to internal skeletons, but now evolution sharpens its tools even further. Teeth, jaws. The ocean is about to get a lot more dangerous. At first, jaws are humble things, mere bars of cartilage that snap open and shut. But compared to the passive filter feeding of earlier days, they're revolutionary. Imagine going from sipping soup with a straw to wielding a pair of kitchen shears. Suddenly, vertebrates don't just drift and nibble. They hunt, they bite, they tear. You catch sight of placoderms, some of the first jawed fishes. Their bodies are encased in bony plates, like armored tanks with mouths. They look clunky, sure, but when those jaws snap shut, they can crush through shells and carapaces with terrifying ease. Trilobites, once kings of the seafloor, now find themselves cracked open like ancient fortune cookies. But not all jawed fish go for brute force. Some, like the early acanthodians, nicknamed spiny sharks, opt for speed and agility. Sleek, finned, bristling with defensive spines, they dart through the water with jaws quick enough to snatch prey mid-swim. They're not true sharks yet, but you can see the outlines of what's coming. Streamlined predators built for the chase. Here's the strange twist. Jaws didn't evolve for biting at all. Scientists suspect they began as gill supports, structures to help pump water and filter food. Over time, they got co-opted, remodeled, weaponized. A piece of plumbing transformed into a weapon, nature's version of repurposing spare parts. You float amid the chaos and realize how much this one innovation reshapes the ocean. Suddenly, being small and soft isn't safe anymore. Early vertebrates without armor, gone in a snap. Sponges, worms, mollusks, all find themselves under new pressure. Reefs, once peaceful havens, now ring with the silent tension of predator and prey, and the arms race only escalates. Prey species grow thicker shells, spines, poisons. Predators develop stronger jaws, sharper teeth, faster strikes. For the first time in history, the ocean hums with the soundless crunch of one creature cracking open another. It's grisly, yes, but it's also the engine of progress. Without the rise of jaws, ecosystems would never have grown so complex, so dynamic, so alive. You can't help but grin at the absurdity. Billions of years of gentle grazing and drifting, undone by a single innovation. The hinge of a jaw. Somewhere, an early trilobite might have thought, it's just a new set of bones. What's the worst that could happen? The answer, everything. And as you hover in these ancient seas, watching armored fish clash, spiny swimmers dart, and prey scatter, you feel the tempo of evolution quicken once more. The ocean has teeth now, and nothing will ever be the same. For eons, the ocean has been your whole world, a cradle, a battleground, a city of reefs and armored kings. But now, something stirs along the shore. The water's edge, once just a boundary, becomes a gateway. Life peers out of the surf, blinks in the strange brightness of air, and dares to step onto land. It doesn't happen with a grand march, but with hesitant crawls. Picture shallow lagoons shrinking under a hot sun, fish trapped in puddles, forced to wriggle from one pool to another. Those with stronger fins, sturdier muscles, and primitive lungs find themselves with an advantage. What began as survival becomes opportunity. You crouch by the shoreline and watch a creature half fish, half something else haul itself across the mud. Its name, at least in modern whispers, might be Tiktaalik. It props itself up on fins thickened like crude limbs, its flat head swiveling to scan both water and air. For the first time, a vertebrate looks around on land and thinks, or at least gapes. So this is new. Insects and primitive plants are already there, waiting. Mosses and early vascular greenery creep across the damp soil, painting the coast with green fuzz. Arthropods skitter, armored like their ocean cousins but now breathing air. The first true ecosystems on land are sparse, humble, but they're there, beckoning pioneers from the sea. Here's a curious fact. Lungs weren't invented just for land. Many ancient fish had them already, tucked away as adaptations for low oxygen waters. But now, those lungs prove to be passports. With each gulp of air, the impossible becomes possible. Vertebrates exploring a world without gills. The risks are enormous. Gravity, for one. No longer does water hold you up. Every step is a wrestle with your own weight. Drying out is another. Skin cracks, eyes sting, bodies dehydrate. Yet the rewards are dazzling. Untapped food sources, empty niches, a whole planet without jaws snapping from behind. Scientists still argue about the exact sequence. Was it shallow-dwelling fish escaping predators? Or fish chasing insects onto muddy banks? Perhaps both. But the outcome is clear. The boundary is crossed. Fins are becoming legs. Gills are giving way to lungs. The ocean's monopoly is breaking. You stand at the shoreline, the surf washing against your ankles, and you realize you're watching one of the boldest moves in the history of life. From now on, the story will stretch not only through the waves, but across continents, into forests, deserts, and skies. And though the sea still roars behind you, full of trilobites, armored fish, and reefs, you feel it. A new chapter has begun. Life has left the water, and the world will never look the same. You follow those first vertebrate pioneers onto land, and at first the landscape feels quiet. Green fuzz, shallow-rooted plants, the faint scuttle of early arthropods. But time winds forward, and suddenly the air above you buzzes, hums, rattles. The land is no longer silent. It belongs to insects. And not the kind you swat away on a summer night. These are giants, dragonflies with wingspans wider than a hawk's glide overhead, their compound eyes glinting like stained glass. Millipedes as long as a car ripple across the forest floor, every segment moving in hypnotic waves. Even scorpions grow massive, their pincers big enough to crack bark. It feels like you've stumbled into a B-movie, except this is real, and it lasted for millions of years. Why so big? The answer, at least in part, is oxygen. During this period, the Carboniferous, Earth's atmosphere holds far more oxygen than today, close to 35%. Every breath is supercharged fuel, letting arthropods grow to colossal proportions. Insects don't have lungs. They rely on tiny tubes, spiracles, to diffuse oxygen into their bodies. More oxygen in the air means those tubes can support far larger creatures. It's like nature pressed the max size slider all the way up. The forests they inhabit are equally strange. Towering lycophytes and horsetails dominate, plants that look like monstrous cousins of ferns and mosses. Their roots sprawl shallow, their trunks hollow, yet they stretch skyward in green columns. Swamps spread between them, buzzing with life. This is Earth's first great rainforest, a swampy kingdom where amphibians croak from the shadows, insects whir overhead, and every log seems to crawl. You crouch beside a fallen tree and see it writhing. Termite-like insects chew through the soft wood, while centipedes coil in predatory patience. Above, a dragonfly the size of a gull darts down, snatching a smaller insect with such precision you'd swear it was piloted by radar. Predation has reached the skies, and the air hums with tension as much as with wings. Here's a quirky truth most people don't know. Some of these massive insects left such detailed fossils that we can still see the delicate tracery of their wings, like pressed flowers in stone. Whole pages of the fossil record shimmer with patterns that once caught the Carboniferous sun. Scientists still debate whether high oxygen alone explains their size, or if lack of flying predators. Birds won't appear for another 200 million years. Let them dominate unchecked. Whatever the case, this was their golden age, a time when insects ruled the skies, the swamps, and even the trees. You walk through this buzzing world, swatting at nothing, because here, you would be the small one. Imagine jogging through a forest only to have a dragonfly swoop past, wings thrumming like helicopter blades. Suddenly, that mosquito in your bedroom doesn't seem so bad, does it? And yet, even in their dominance, you sense it's temporary. The atmosphere will shift, the oxygen will drop, and giants will shrink. But for this slice of time, Earth belongs to them. The age of giant insects, where every flutter, crawl, and buzz reminds you that life never stops rewriting the rules. You wander deeper into this humid world, and the air thickens around you like warm soup. The ground squishes beneath your steps, every patch of soil more water than earth. You glance up, and for the first time in Earth's history, you find yourself surrounded by something that feels like a real forest. But it's not like the forests you know. These aren't oaks, maples, or pines. Instead, giant lycophytes tower above you, their trunks tall and narrow, bark patterned with diamond scars where leaves once clung. Some rise over 30 meters, hollow inside like chimneys. Around them cluster horsetails thick as bamboo, and tree ferns with fronds spreading like feathery parasols. It's lush, it's alien, and it stretches for miles. This is the Carboniferous rainforest, Earth's first canopy, a green revolution that reshapes the planet. For the first time, entire ecosystems grow upward, stacking life in layers. Sunlight filters through tiers of leaves, dappling the swampy floor where amphibians lurk and insects as wide as your hand crawl. The air feels heavy, not just with moisture, but with oxygen, so rich that every breath fills your lungs like a deep inhale of mountain air, only stickier. You push aside a fern and find yourself in a clearing where roots weave into a tangled mat. Strange cone-like structures rise from the ground. These are the plant's reproductive organs. Remember, flowers and seeds don't exist yet. Instead, spores drift in the air, dusting everything in a fine, greenish powder. If you've ever sneezed in springtime pollen clouds, multiply that by 100, and you'll have an idea of what it's like to stand here. The forests don't just feed life, they reshape Earth itself. As these plants grow, die, and fall into the swampy muck, their remains pile up layer upon layer. In the oxygen-poor waters, decay slows. Over millions of years, the pressure of sediment compresses this organic matter, transforming it into thick seams of coal. That's right. The very forests you walk through are laying down the fuel of the industrial age, hundreds of millions of years in advance. Every flicker of a coal-powered lamp, every steam engine chugging centuries later, traces its origins back to these first forests. Here's a curious fact. Some paleobotanists think that the structure of these trees was so fragile, hollow trunks, shallow roots, that they collapsed like soggy straws once they grew too tall. Imagine an entire forest occasionally keeling over in chain reactions, like dominoes falling in slow motion. As you sit beside a rotting log, a ripple in the mud catches your attention. An amphibian, its head flat and wide like a pancake with eyes, peeks out. It gulps air, then vanishes back into the muck. This forest is not just a home for plants. It's a cradle for creatures testing the limits of land life. And the atmosphere, rich with oxygen, feeds the rise of those giant insects you met earlier. Their wings slice the shafts of sunlight, darting between tree ferns. If you swat at one, the sound is like clapping leather. You almost laugh, thinking about how you'd explain this to someone back home. Yeah, I was walking in a swamp where dragonflies were the size of hawks and trees were hollow tubes. Sounds made up, right? But it's here, and it's real. These forests are the lungs of an ancient earth, pumping oxygen into the sky, locking carbon into the ground, and shaping the course of life for eons. Without them, the stage for future animals, dinosaurs, mammals, even you, would never have been set. Still, as lush as it is, you sense fragility. The balance of swamp and sky, of roots and rain, can't last forever. Already deep shifts in climate and geology loom, waiting to test these green giants. But for now, you stand in the first true forest, a cathedral of ancient plants, hearing the hiss of insects and the drip of swamp water echo like hymns through the undergrowth. You wade out of the swampy thickets of the first forests, and the chorus of buzzing wings fades. In its place, a new sound rises, the wet, throaty croak of creatures staking their claim on land. You glance down at your boots, sinking into mud, and realize the ground itself feels alive. Every puddle shivers, every log conceals something watching. Amphibians have arrived, and suddenly the swamp is theirs. They are not the sleek frogs you know. These pioneers are strange mashups. Bodies stretched long like eels, limbs splayed awkwardly to the side, skin slick with mucus that glistens in the dim light. Some sprawl belly first through the mud, while others raise themselves on stubby legs, testing the art of walking. Their eyes bulge wide, swiveling above the water like periscopes. They gulp air in gulps, not smooth breaths, as if every inhale is still an experiment. These amphibians are the first true vertebrates to claim land as home. Fish-like ancestors had already flirted with the idea, crawling clumsily into shallows, but now the experiment blossoms. You watch one leap, surprisingly quick, from water to bank, snapping up an insect with a smack of its toothy jaws. Dinner served, carboniferous style, and the diversity is staggering. Some, like Ariops, grow bulky and imposing, over 2 meters long. Imagine a giant salamander with the attitude of a crocodile. Others remain small, frog-sized, hiding under roots. The swamp is alive with them, from tiny wrigglers to lumbering hunters, each filling niches in a world where reptiles have not yet stepped in. Here's a quirky fact. Many of these amphibians had labyrinthine folds in their teeth, literally twisting enamel that looked like someone carved mazes into their fangs. It made their bite stronger, better at holding slippery prey. A detail most people miss, but one that hints at just how inventive evolution was feeling during this age. You squat beside a pond, watching tadpole-like young wriggle in the shallows. Their gills flutter, shimmering red, still clinging to their aquatic origins. Some will remain tied to the water forever, but others will climb onto land, shed their gills, and take the next step. It's a delicate balance. They can breathe air, but their skin must stay moist, tethering them to swamps and rivers. They are the middle children of evolution, not quite fish, not yet reptiles. And still, historians debate. Why here? Why now? Was it the predator-free land, ripe with insects to snack on? Was it the competition in the water? Or maybe it was just that eternal driver of life, chance, mixed with opportunity. As you trail one of these creatures, it scrambles across mossy roots and slips back into the pool with a splash. Ripples spread across the water, where lily-like plants float lazily. You can't help but grin. Imagine a world where the loudest nightlife isn't birds or cicadas, but 6-foot salamanders bellowing across a swamp. Try explaining that to your neighbors when they complain about noisy frogs in spring. But here, that sound is the anthem of survival. Amphibians, with their awkward gait and wet skins, are writing a new chapter for vertebrates. They prove that land is no longer off limits. And even though their dominance won't last forever, for now, they are the undisputed rulers of this green and soggy stage. The air feels thick with possibility. You sense the future waiting, scaly, egg-laying, sun-basking creatures ready to challenge the amphibians. But that's another scene. Tonight, you stand ankle-deep in the Carboniferous swamp, surrounded by croaks, splashes, and wide-staring eyes that mark the first empire of land-dwelling vertebrates. The swamp quiets for a moment, and you notice something subtle, footprints in the mud, smaller than those left by the lumbering amphibians. They wander away from the water's edge, up a rise, and vanish beneath the roots of a lycophyte tree. You follow, crouching low, and there, nestled in the shade, you spot the newest players on Earth's stage, early reptiles. At first glance, they look like compact lizards, low-slung bodies, scaly skin that glistens under the damp light. But it's not just their scales that matter. These creatures carry with them an invention so radical, so game-changing, that it shifts the destiny of all vertebrates to come. In the soft earth, half hidden beneath leaves, lies their secret: eggs. Not the jelly-like clusters of amphibians, doomed to dry out on land, but hard-shelled packages with their own watery world inside. The amniotic egg. Think of it as life's first portable aquarium. Each egg contains membranes that cushion, nourish, and protect the embryo. It's self-contained, a miniature biosphere. For the first time, vertebrates are no longer chained to the swamp. No more desperate dashes to water for breeding. No more vulnerable jelly clumps for hungry predators. With the amniotic egg, life cracks open the entire continent. You watch one of these reptiles, slim-bodied, insect hunting, scuttle up a tree root, jaws snapping at a beetle. Its movements are quicker, sharper than those of amphibians. The scales seal in moisture, freeing it from the constant need for damp skin. Its lungs are stronger, its stride more confident. For the first time, an animal can live fully on land, without retreating to the water's edge. Here's a curious truth. Paleontologists still debate which group truly counts as the first reptile. Was it Hylonomus, a tiny creature found fossilized in hollow tree stumps? Or some lesser-known cousin, lost to time? Either way, these early reptiles were small, scurrying things, likely prey more than predator. But their eggs, their independence, made them the true pioneers. You kneel to examine one of those ancient eggs, smooth, leathery, nothing like a bird's hard shell, but still tough enough to keep the embryo safe. Inside, you imagine a tiny reptile curling, growing, waiting. It's the same blueprint that will one day hatch dinosaurs, crocodiles, snakes, birds, even the ancestors of mammals. One innovation, countless futures. And if you smile, it's because you know how this story ends. That awkward little scaly crawler in front of you? It's family. Distant, yes, but family all the same. Without that leap, the invention of the amniotic egg, you wouldn't be here, walking through these primeval forests, swatting at dragonflies the size of kites. Still, don't get too comfortable. These first reptiles may seem small, but their legacy is colossal. The amphibian swampy empire is fading, and the world is opening up to those who can roam farther, climb higher, and thrive drier. You sense it as the breeze shifts through the trees. The stage is being reset, and the age of reptiles is just beginning. The forest exhales around you, rich with spores and shadows. You hear the distant croak of an amphibian fading into the background, while a tiny reptile scampers up a log and disappears into the canopy. The future belongs to them now. The forest grows quieter around you now. The heavy air, once alive with the buzz of dragonflies and the croak of giant amphibians, softens into silence. You take one last slow breath, and it feels as if the whole carboniferous world exhales with you. Ferns bending, shadows lengthening, life itself pausing in stillness. The reptiles, small and unassuming, vanish into the undergrowth, carrying with them the promise of all that will come after. You can almost trace the thread forward, weaving through deep time, dinosaurs rising and falling, mammals padding into the night, birds lifting into the skies. And, at the very far end of that line, you. But tonight, there is no rush. No need to follow that long story just yet. For now, you are here, wrapped in the quiet of ancient swamps, listening to the soft drip of water from mossy trunks, feeling the warmth of a world still new, still experimenting. The first forests, the giant insects, the brave amphibians, the fragile eggs. All of them sink gently into memory, like pebbles disappearing into a pond. The images grow dimmer with each blink of your eyes. The forests fold into mist. The insects quiet their wings. Even the rippling pools smooth into glass, reflecting only the calmness of the night. And as you drift, you carry with you the comfort of knowing that life has always found a way. Through storms, through experiments, through endless patience. It always has, and it always will. So let the story fade now, like a lantern being slowly dimmed. Let your breath settle into the same rhythm as the ancient Earth's heartbeat. And let sleep take you, gentle as the hush of leaves falling on still water.